Okay, good afternoon. Amit, thank you for inviting me, and Professor Jain and Tom, really enjoyed your talk. Before Ranjan sent the email, I'd already made the slides. I worked very hard, but he then sent a mail saying it's only 8 plus 2 minutes. So I might have to rush through a couple, but I'm happy to share the slides with you at some point. So fairly quickly, we are established in 1980 as a double crown B school with ASA's Benamba, working for Equus now, preparing for Equus, 5,000 odd alumni, strong alumni base. I put out a vision document earlier for 2022, which basically spoke about we want to be able to create high demand from talented students. We want to make TAPMI a destination of choice, student outcomes, career choices, and obviously we want to create a student sort of centered learning atmosphere. I'm going to take a little bit of dig at the Harvard Business School as well, so when I don't mind. I know we subscribe to all of your cases, but I think it's a good opportunity for me to say a few things. So the traditional MBA has been grounded in functional disciplines, and we would agree to that. And there's a strong alignment between a single function career and the curriculum. That's how it's been. I didn't realize that Henry Mintzberg was going to speak, but I did like what he had said. It's management is not a profession. It's not a science. You can't learn it the way you learn surgery or engineering. It's a practice, and you learn management practicing management. So why am I saying this? So I just want to look at the shortcomings of the traditional MBA. I want to take a little different route to the actual theme that was given to me. We will talk about faculty, but it also means that faculty will need to adapt themselves fairly quickly. So there's a clear disconnect between what's being taught in business schools around the world, and I'm certain I say around the world, and the vast growing societal needs. There's a clear emphasis now in most schools about analysis and measurement, huge amount of case studies, and I'll show you some data from TAPMI as to what we are doing and why I think it's not the right thing to do. Over 600 cases in a year, in 2 years. We're focusing on solving case studies, and that gives a real false sense to students today that they can deal with real life situations, which is definitely not the case. And I think there is a need for change. And the need for change is quite important because the MBA curriculum, in my view, has got to be largely flexible. And unfortunately, it's actually not flexible because it doesn't reflect the reality. It doesn't reflect the real work environment. So I wanted to move a little bit from a shareholder perspective as a professor of finance or teaches finance to a stakeholder perspective. The shift has to happen, and it has to be accommodated. There is a definite need to understand there's a diverse stakeholder perspectives, and that has to be factored. It is also important to understand that there is ideas across disciplines, and that students need to be exposed. The curriculum has to also understand and highlight stakeholder-focused learning objectives, which I don't think many schools are doing. And I think the example that Professor Jain gave about Friedman about, hey, companies are there to make profits, what do you do with profits is important. I agree to that, but there's also, I think it's moved a little bit from that shift. And you've got to design programs that are sort of, committed to sustainable business practices. That I think is necessary. So I just want to have a look at what are the employers talking about and what are their expectations. So today an employer clearly says, listen, we have flat heritage globalization. We want to be able for somebody to work across functions, across geography, across organization, across industry, across sector. No longer is the silo business going to work, and that's exactly what the employers are screaming out the lungs. So quickly, common themes around the world. Everybody talks about global citizenship. We talk about ethics and values. We talk about social responsibility. We talk about lifelong learning. Somebody mentioned that today. I think, Tom, your talk spoke about lifelong learning. Initiative, leadership. All of these are real common themes around the world, and good business programs should sort of reflect them. So I want to talk a little bit about need for redefining the MBA, and I take this point about entrepreneurial mindset as to why we need to have that mindset, and why business programs sort of need to, or the curriculum rather, needs to accommodate entrepreneurship. And I think it's equally important. Somebody spoke about immersion. I think it was Amit who spoke about immersion versus engagement, where the close connect with business leaders also addresses problems of the real world. That's critical. That is absolutely critical today to have a really strong program. So what is it? Some of the things we can do. And a couple of things that I want to really quickly highlight. One is that, the business education is absolutely of necessity and it's rooted in global realities. There is no question about it. We want to look at social intelligence. Somebody did mention this point. I think it was your point, Tom, about social intelligence. We want to look at the interpersonal functions, the softer side of management, which I'm not sure how many schools are focusing on. Learning by doing, which is experiential, which is where TAPMI does a lot of work in being experiential in learning. I'll give a couple of examples of how we do it. And preparing graduates to have them do, decide, and create. I like cases, but I'm not a great fan of using too many cases in classes, and I wanted to just point out this idea of raw versus cooked cases. And so Yale has really outstanding way to do a different case study approach. They don't talk about cooked cases. They say it's cases got a point of view. You're given some narrative, you're given some problems, and you deal with them. But they use what's called a raw case, where presentation's different, it's happening, there is a lot of conflicting reports available, and you're actually dealing with it as opposed to be given some 5 days, 6 days to answer a problem. So the cooked cases apparently focus exclusively on a particular skill, and in doing so, they can miss the corporate dilemma. That's true. The raw cases, as they propose, is that it's supplemented with lots of reports, videos, there are media reports that are happening, there's a 10K reports that will go with it, there are supplementary spreadsheets that are available to you, and it gives students a whole different perspective than a typical sort of case study that we use in most schools. And it also challenges the student community quite a lot because they may have to reach some reasonable conclusions. I just want you to have a look at this. This is very scary for me. In the last year at TAPMI, we've used almost 600 cases. I mean, it's a different thing we're paying Harvard a bomb to use the cases. That's okay. But I'm just wondering, what are we trying to do to the students? I mean, across 2 years, and I've just asked the faculty PGP office to give me a breakdown of area-wise, and also the number of pages of cases, and how many days and hours and minutes they have to prepare for these cases. I'm just not sure where we're actually headed. And I looked at this for each batch. So I'm giving you the last 3 batches since I took over. And it has Harvard. On top of it, we use IB cases. Then we have Indian cases. Then we have HBR articles that we use. Nothing against that. I think it's okay. But are we just going for the overkill? And on most Indian program, business schools program, they would do around 60 plus courses. We're going for breadth as opposed to depth. And then we are just, literally having some, this is the actual number. I printed out the number. I mean, most of my colleagues would think, why would you even do this in a public forum? And for one, I believe that it is important to put it out. And I actually want business to do some sort of benchmarking exercise if somebody could do. As to, I'm happy to share all of my data from my school. And if other people wanted to do it, you can see. Now, this is 16-18 batch. The 17-19 batch, I sort of fought and I said, guys, we need to really reduce the number of cases. I'm not saying don't use cases, but think about why do we need these many cases? What is it doing to a student? How much are they actually learning, right? So we reduced this a little bit, still hasn't gone down. And it's now the current 18-20 batch, it's gone up again. And some people say, no, we want more cases, we want to be able to use more cases. So that's a 2-minute warning?
Yeah, I hate to interrupt a friend and peer in full flow, but
absolutely
2 minutes.
No problem. I totally understand. You're doing a great job. So I'm almost there. I will skip the Washington Stadium. I had some anecdotes, some examples of how schools are actually changing the curriculum. But maybe I will talk a little bit about, very quickly about maybe the school that I'm from, TAPMI, and how we use experiential learning. I'll give you 2 examples. One is I teach a course called SMIC, which is a course where we give real money to students. TAPMI gives 10 lakhs Indian currency to get them to invest in markets. I run this course across the whole of second year as really selected students, like managing a fund, and groups of 5. And we also have a fund called Samnidhi, which is a fund where the students actually collect money from students, invest in markets. They have a benchmark, and they've been outperforming the benchmark. It's the only registered student fund in the country. So I think it's a great experience for them to be able to collect money from students and then invest. When they don't make returns, they get caught with the students and say, hey, listen, I gave you my 10,000 bucks. What did you do with it? So the investment team is really scary when yesterday the markets dropped 460 points, 1.5%. So there is always a problem. I think this is important, where you have to learn to handle somebody's money. This is as real as it gets. Simulations, which I didn't speak about in the graph that I also have, we also use a lot of simulations at school. So this is real investment where the students have to learn to manage portfolios. Brand scan is another example of TAPMI where it's completely experiential. You really have to go to the companies, get the projects, do the disguised market research game. Then you work and produce the reports, and hopefully, you have a lot more real sort of implications that sort of come out when you have this experiential learning. So to me, the professors have got to adapt themselves very quickly. Absolutely right that no longer the textbook, the whiteboard would work. It's all right to do that, but I think understanding that there is a real mindset shift, that to me is absolutely important. So I hope I finished within time. I had to really rush fast, but I know that Ranjan would have cut me short if I didn't finish within time. So.